Welcome back, baseball fans, to the 1970-73 draft prep. Continuing the series where we're looking at transactions after each of the 4 years to see if there's anything consistent between Major League Baseball that I could apply into the carryover league. So let's go right into the transactions. Where are we? Well, in the 71 season, the World Series went 7 games. Game 7, Pittsburgh at Baltimore. Steve Blass wins on the road, beats the Orioles in Baltimore. That was on October the 17th. What's interesting is that there are trades immediately before and after that World Series game. Teams are making trades right during that. Interesting. So we'll start October 10th because it's a big trade here. Red Sox trade Brett, Canigliaro, LaHood, Lomborg, Pavlitek, and George Scott to the Brewers for this guy, Tommy Harper, Lou Krause, and Marty Patton. Wow. That's a lot to digest right there. So, let me just kind of see if I can just kind of go through the laundry list where everybody is. Ken Brett, already out of the Red Sox system. An expansion team, Las Vegas, picked him up. Canigliaro, also taken away from the Sox. Joe LaHoo, taken away. Lomborg's not in the league yet. Pavlitek's retired. They have George Scott, though. He's the only of the 6 players that's still in the Red Sox. The Brewers do have Tommy Harper. And they have Marty Patton. Ooh. Now, Tommy Harper and Marty Patton for George Scott could be interesting. And something else. A 2-for-2 trade. That'd be something I would do. It's really interesting to see that these two teams threw all these guys in here, though. My goodness, a 10-player trade. I'm thinking that the Red Sox thought that because the Brewers were the Seattle Pilots a year ago, that they were going to take advantage of this trade. And did they? Well, Tommy Harper had a monster 1970 year, 30 home runs. Marty Patton pitched pretty well, actually, for the Milwaukee and Boston, and then eventually Kansas City, though by the time he gets to Kansas City, he starts to lean to the bullpen. Letting George Scott go made sense if you're the Red Sox because you got Yaz at first and you're clogging up your outfield if you put Yaz in left field. With all the outfield prospects, but then again, Canigliaro is gone. They still have Tony Canigliaro. They still have Reggie Smith. I don't know. This is a lot to digest, folks. But if I wanted a way of getting Tommy Harper and George Scott to switch teams, I might explore something like that. I'm leaning to letting the guys stay where they're at, though, for the time being. Let's keep going. This is a long one here. Rich Hinton for Lytle. No big deal there. And nothing going on in that one. Okay, here's a big one. The Mets trade Jim Bibby, Rich Folkers, Charles Hudson, and Art Shamsky to the Cardinals for Beauchamp, Coulter, Parker, and Taylor. Well, out of all this, Folkers will give you some nice years in 74, 75 for the Cardinals. Shamsky's at the end of the tank there, so the Mets were glad to get rid of him. He had some nice years at the end for the Mets, but not much for the St. Louis. Chuck Taylor had some nice years. I don't recall them being with the Mets, though. The Expos and the Cardinals he had good years for. So I can't really do much with that trade either. John Morris, no big deal there. No big deal here. Nothing going on there. And we're releasing some players now that the World Series has been played. Marty Martinez. We have the Rule 5 draft coming up. We'll see a lot of young players who don't develop until the middle of the decade, you would assume. Here's a nice little trade. 1-for-1, but it has some interesting players. The Angels trade Dave LaRoche to the Twins for Chico Cardenas. And I was talking about how the Angels needed a shortstop, too. And they traded Maury Wills. Who in the heck do the Angels have at shortstop? They're not getting rid of Dave LaRoche. This Dave LaRoche card, and LaRoche kind of has a couple different stints with the Angels. But the way I'm playing it out, just hold on to the dude. I mean, he's got a heck of a lefty closer card. Just hold on to him, California. Because Cardenas only has about a year left. If that, year or two. Say goodbye to Ernie Banks to the Cubs. Oh, here's a big one. Roy Foster, Rich Hand, Mike Paul, and Ken Suarez to the Rangers for Jones, Lay, Riddleberger, and Unser. Well, Unser was traded by the Rangers last year to the Cubs. They have Riddleberger. Suarez is on the expansion team. Mike Paul. The Rangers do have Mike Paul. That's a nice pickup there. Indians will hold on to Foster. Here we go. So we talked about this, the Dick Allen maneuvers in the last couple of these videos about him skipping the Dodger and Cardinal part of it. In this particular instance, in this year, you have Hunts and John for Dick Allen. Well, we've already moved John to the Dodgers, and we've already moved Allen to the White Sox. So it's already basically been consummated in a different method, and Hunts is just an extra player. And nothing going on here. Okay, so we also talked about how the Orioles were going to move Frank Robinson to the Cleveland Indians because Cleveland really wanted Frank Robinson versus the California Angels and the Dodgers, who Frank Robinson played for. So here is your comparative haul the Orioles should expect out of Cleveland. You get a quality starting pitcher who's young and develops, Doyle Alexander. This guy not so much, this guy not so much, and this guy not so much. So really, man, Robinson for Alexander. So if I'm the Cleveland Indians, I'm sending the Orioles the choice of young pitcher. Yeah. The Indians could top this. I believe the Indians could certainly top this haul to get land Frank Robinson, as if they were competing with the Dodgers. And they throw in Pete Reichert. Well, that's not going to happen. Reichert's on a different team. So this is good news for Cleveland. Cleveland can surely best this to get Frank Robinson. So I think I'm on the right track. And when it comes to the Dodgers, the whole, do they get Dick Allen? Do they get Frank Robinson? You know, it doesn't really help the Dodgers. They're going to develop these corner first base types and outfield types themselves. Just give it a couple years. They're going to have Steve Garvey, who's going to be better than Dick Allen. They're going to have Bill Buckner, better than Frank Robinson, you know, by 74 or whatever. So the Dodgers, no big deal to lose out on Allen and Robinson. All right. So Jose Cardinal, look, this is a prize. Colburn, Davis, and Earl Stevenson for Jose Cardinal. Colburn actually pretty good in this era. Brock Davis has one good year in a limited sample size with a nice batting average. The Astros traded Grief, Schaefer, and Thomas for Dave Roberts. The infielder, not the... Oh, I don't know. This could be the pitcher. I think this is the pitcher. I was looking for an asterisk for a lefty. Is this the pitcher? Yes, this is the pitcher. And the pitcher is better than the hitter, Dave Roberts, in that era. Let's keep going. We're in December. Milt Wilcox for Ted Uhlaender. Fregosi. Oh, here we are. Here's the Fregosi Nolan Ryan trade, which has already transpired. So Fregosi, it was a 3-team proxy. Fregosi ended up going to Milwaukee. And Milwaukee sent some guys to the Mets, and the Mets sent Nolan Ryan to the Angels. But this happened already, and everybody's happy. Fregosi had a big year with Milwaukee, and then the Mets won the World Series, and California got Nolan Ryan, and they had a big year. So everybody's happy. Nothing to worry about there. Okay. And now we're getting to the amateur free agents before 1972. So we're getting close to spring training now. Maloney released there. The amateur draft, this is just drafting guys who will be good by the middle of the decade. Warren Cromartie, Jim Morrison, Roy Smalley. There you go. Rich Dower. Okay. Not seen anything yet. Baltimore Orioles trade Fred Bean to the Yankees. You're going to forget that, Orioles. Fred Bean has some nice years for the Yankees. The Cubs trading Callison to the Yankees for a player to be named later. No big deal. Jack Aker. Ooh, Jack Aker had some nice years for the Yankees, too. Callison had better years with the Phillies than the Cubs. Angels trading Tommy Reynolds for Costco. That's a bad move. Reynolds doesn't do anything. Costco projects to 40 homers every year, but he only bats 100 times, mostly as a pinch hitter in the National League. Would have been a great DH if he was in the American League. Nothing special there. There it is. This has already happened, though. February of 72. Phillies trading Rick Wise straight up for Steve Carlton. Well, the fun part about this is, remember the whole Curt Flood doesn't report for a trade? Well, we got Curt Flood involved in that trade somehow and some other pieces. So Curt Flood ends up in Philadelphia with Carlton in this one transaction. And then the Cardinals got a nice bounty. They also got Ken Holtzman in the deal, too, from another team. So it worked out for the Cardinals. We talked about, Denny Mclean getting out of Detroit because the stats aren't there anymore. And he winds up on the Rangers for these guys who aren't so much. But at least we know where Denny Mclean will end up. Wow, 46-game winner. Over a period of a couple years getting dealt. This trade. The Red Sox, Sparky Lyle for a player in Danny Cater, and the player name is Guerrero. So Lyle for Cater, this would have been a big failure for the Red Sox. So we had Cater, the Red Sox didn't desire Cater. And when you think about it, remember we looked at that George Scott earlier, how they dealt George Scott? So basically what Boston was doing was, by spring training, they realized that, we really missed George Scott, so they traded for Danny Cater. Just hold on to George Scott and Sparky Lyle, and don't trade for Danny Cater, is what Boston should have done. So anyway, the Yankees do get Sparky Lyle, because frankly, Lyle pitches better in Yankee Stadium than Fenway Park. And Cater ends up going to a different team, and the Red Sox ended up getting Joe LaHood back in this deal, and somebody else. But Danny Cater did not really help the Red Sox here, at least not significantly. Okay, we're getting close to spring training, and we still have minor moves, and we get to April 1972. Let's see if we can get some trades that get through the trade deadline. And that would be the trade deadline. So April, okay. Here we are. We're in April. We're still making deals. Here we go. Here it is, folks. Here's a big trade I want to do. Well, we talked about how Ken Singleton helped the New York Mets with his 1970 card win the World Series. He played corner outfield for the Mets the whole year as a switch hitter. A 265 card, he hit 350 with it. So he clearly overachieved with a monster card, and he gets a World Series ring for the Mets. And the Mets are like, sell high on Kenny Singleton. And he doesn't have a huge year until 1973. So Rusty Staub is the prize. So it's Staub for Singleton. But you've got these incidentals here. Mike Jorgensen, the Expos want him. He'll play first base. And Tim Foley, they'll want him. They'll want all three of these guys. This is a great trade. This is one of the best trades I've seen here. Rusty Staub straight up for these three guys. I think everybody's happy. The Expos should have held on to Singleton. They didn't do it. Foley was solid. Great glove. Good bat. Good hit and run. Jorgensen, a platoon player with a gold glove. That's a heck of a haul for the Expos. And the Mets should have held on to Rusty Staub. I guess they weren't happy with his outfield defense and sent him to the Tigers later on. But I'll do something like this. But it's good to know that Foley and Jorgensen are chips to toss into this trade. I'm thinking that the Expos might have to give the Mets something more because of the 1 for 3. Even though Foley and Jorgensen are kind of platoon players, they're good platoon players. And Singleton's 1973 card might be as good as any of the Rusty Staub cards from 70, 71, 72, 73. So this trade will heat up the hot stove. Hal Breeden for Dan McGinn. Nothing really exciting going on here. Because now we're into May. Oh my goodness. The Mets trade Charlie Williams and 50 grand to the Giants for Willie Mays. Okay. So let's unpack this for a moment. San Francisco Giants, I just don't, this is like a big topic, but the Giants have a surplus of center fielders, like 5 of them. They have Bobby Bonds, they have Willie Mays, they have Ken Henderson, they bring up Gary Maddox, and they have Gary Matthews as well, all coming up in their system. And somehow they mismanage all that talent, and Bonds is gone, Henderson's gone, Mays is old, Maddox is a Philly, and Gary Matthews is a Brave, and the Giants end up with a whole lot of nothing. The Mets really could use Willie Mays, particularly a year or two earlier than when they got him, because they could not hold on to Tommy Agee, their center fielder. So maybe the Mets find something they acquire from the Expos in the Rusty Staub trade, repackage it with Charlie Williams or whoever, and end up with Willie Mays. And somehow the Mets end up with Rusty Staub in right field, Willie Mays in center field with an extra year on his contract, so he's still good. And a better Willie Mays would technically get to a World Series than the one that actually showed up for the Mets in '72. And in left field, you have our boy Cleon Jones. Wow. That's one of those trades, if it did happen, it reminds me of Charlie Finley making the trades with Oakland that got vetoed because they seemed unfair to the rest of baseball. The Joe Rudi to the Red Sox, Vida Blue to the Yankees, I think. I mean, having the Mets with Willie Mays, Staub, and Cleon Jones and Tom Seaver coming off a World Series championship, I think the rest of the league might sort of complain about that kind of thing. Fun stuff, folks. Fun stuff. All the possibilities. Thank you, Strat-O-Matic. All right. A lot of incidental. We're getting to May. We'll take this through another amateur draft. We'll take this through the trade deadline, which is at the end of July, and see if there's any gems here. Then we'll call it for tonight. This has been kind of a longer one because there's been a lot of analysis on some trades, individual trades. Look, Fred Stanley's getting traded. Bob Barton, Corrales. Nothing in the blockbuster. I mean, I've commented on the blockbusters, and everything else is a little bit incidental here. And sometimes you see a big name, but you realize he doesn't become big until years go by. Initially, it seems like a great trade, but then later on, it's a bad one. Oh my goodness. So the Braves trade Orlando Cepeda to the A's for Denny Mclean. I don't know about that, Atlanta. Yeah. I wouldn't do that. Denny's pretty much toast, man. And Orlando, he still is a DH for the Red Sox in '73, '74. He can still rake. And we're getting closer. 20th. Here's a big deal. The A's. Remember, the A's are making all these deals because they're trying to win some World Series. Oh, this would be a nice prize for the A's. Don Mincher. He would be a nice replacement for Mike Epstein, who the Rangers are not going to relinquish. So, all these toys going to the Washington Senators. Mincher is currently on Milwaukee. I think that Milwaukee will send Mincher to the A's because the A's are going to get a left-hand hitting first baseman. Somebody, because Joe Rudi can't play first base in this iteration, and Gene Tenace wants to catch full time. So they want a left-handed hitting first baseman. Mincher makes sense. The Brewers have 2 left-handed hitting first basemen anyway, Mike Hegan and this Mincher guy. So Mincher from Milwaukee to the A's, and I don't know about Vic Harris and Marty Martinez, But Mincher to the A's makes some sense. I like that. That way, Mike Epstein can just retire as a Ranger. Play it out there. All right, end of July. Incidental players, nothing exciting. And now we're getting into the waivers. So you can't make a deal till guys pass their waivers. So we'll stop right here. That was a nice way to finish it. And those are some interesting, a lot more interesting transactions in this 71 off season than in the previous two. All right, thanks for checking out this analysis. Thanks for always commenting. It's always appreciate that. We'll see you next time.